The Nunn Better Podcast. The Nunn Better Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm excited to introduce the very first Nunn Better Podcast with myself, Johnny Nunn, and my co-host, my brother Kelly Nunn.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast.
Kelly, how are you doing today, man?
Good, man. Super excited to be here. Finally glad to see us kind of launch this thing that's been, we've been talking
cultivating
about
for a
this.
long time.
Yeah, long time. So super excited to finally kind of jump into action, so to speak, and kind of let the world know what we're doing.
Yeah, so I guess to give you guys some insight of what this podcast is. So that's kind of why we're doing this first episode, because our executive producers, I can't even talk today. My executive producer says we have to do this, so we're doing it. So we wanted to kind of let you know why we're doing it, what we've been talking about off camera, and what we're wanting to do. So today, Kelly and myself are going to give you our vision of what the Nunn Better podcast is and how we're going to move forward and make you feel part of what we're doing. We're going to ask some tough questions with some tough people, business people. We're going to talk spirituality. We're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about a lot of things on this podcast. So, Kelly, I think we just need to dive right in.
Let's go.
So I'm going to ask you, since we've been brothers obviously our whole life, and we have been doing ventures together since we were kids, right? We started playing music together when we were teenagers, started a band, and we've been playing music together ever since, off and on through our life.
Years, yeah.
So obviously this podcast is going to have some to do with music, because
of course,
that's who we are as a core. But I'm also a businessman. I've owned 3 businesses, and we're going to talk about business, leadership, and how faith intertwines with all those type of things. So if you don't know, Kelly also is the pastor of the St. Pete Vineyard. So, and that's in there in St. Petersburg, Florida. So this whole thing has been, I think the timing has been right now that you're the senior pastor. I've been in the business now for 6 years. We've collected some stuff, talked to people, went down the circles of different things, and now here we are. We're going to launch this thing, and we think we got some interesting people we've talked to, lined up to come on and talk and bring to you, the audience, some very cool people, some very cool topics, and maybe some tough, topics that people, or some questions that people don't like to ask and talk about, and we're going to try to dive into some of those things and see where it takes us.
Well, I think in the church world, it's one of the, not to say that it's lacking, I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form, because people are creating some great content out there. What I kind of see some of the problems that we're facing, especially in culture, is there's an underlying caution with some of what they're bringing up. Not to say that everything's not, controversial in some stuff, but as I was praying about, well, what is it that I can bring to the table that would be utilizing something different than what's been out there, I guess, so to speak. And God's showed me that you and I are not like the normal guys in the church world. No. So I offer a little bit of uniqueness in that regard from my perspective. Not many pastors have been professional musicians, traveled, done all of that, and be able to take those experiences and to be able to share some of that with people. I'm also looking at really kind of, one of the biggest thing that's plaguing our society right now is that term church hurt. I want to bring some of those stories to the forefront.
You're not going to attest to church.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
You and I both have been through that on multiple occasions, and so we can attest to a lot of that. We understand it, so that's why I think we're in a position right now where we're older now, unfortunately. I hate to say.
It's okay.
I'm in my 50s, and so, but that's where I'm at. Mentally, I'm not there, but that's where I'm at. So hopefully those 50 years I've gained a little bit of perspective and knowledge and understanding. I'm definitely more compassionate toward people, understanding, because I've lived life and had my own knocks of life, and understand that hey, it ain't black and white. It isn't always you've got these funnel lenses. It ain't like that. And sometimes we have to step back and say, put yourself in those people's positions and say, or their shoes, and say, hey, it's not. We need to give a little bit of compassion. We need to give some love here. And that's where obviously faith in Christ and all that comes into place with what we do.
Yeah.
So it even applies to my business, because there's a difference between owning a business and calling yourself a Christian, and then actually running your business through the lens of Christianity or through Christ, right?
Absolutely.
And so I've been navigating that path. I started my business when I wasn't living for God and became a Christian now. So I'm trying to change and pivot how I operate, how I portray myself to the public too. Like I want to portray that image. So we're going to be talking about those types of things and having some deep dives in how we can still walk with our faith and be true to our faith, but yet still operate in the world and how we operate out there. And I think Kelly brings, and I have some of this, but Kelly has way more than I do, the professional musician side of traveling outside of, in the depths of some of those, that stuff when you're trying to be a Christian, but you're in the it's what we'll call it the hells of hollow or whatever you want to call it. Sure. When you're in the, if people don't know the behind the scenes of being in the genre of traveling and musicians, and especially in the rock and that sort of scene, man, it gets pretty dark in some places, and
well, what you're noticing, and this is one of the topics that we're going to be kind of diving into when we start the podcast, is as far as the interviews and all that kind of stuff, is you're seeing right now a revival. Yes. In a lot of the music world. You've got Jacoby from Papa Roach. You've got, which Jack Osbourne just came out and was like, they were talking, because Ozzy being the Prince of Darkness and all that kind of gimmick, and he's like, that was never a part of our home life. This was a gimmick. And
it was a show.
Yeah, show. And he's like, but most people never realized that Ozzy believed in Jesus and believed and had a conversion of faith in his life. Alice Cooper's a PK. You've got Gwen Stefani, who just got married to Blake Shelton. Yeah. Him helping her with her identity. You've got this big cultural shift, and I don't think it's by accident that we're seeing these things. No. So these are kind of the things that we want to talk about, to be able to navigate, to see that you have guys that are, or I say guys, I say people in general, who are super successful in the music industry, the movie industry, any of those industries, and they're starting to find out the emptiness that is associated with that, to where you've got everything at your disposal, but yet you are still spiritually dead.
Well, I kind of learned that a little bit on my own path here working. As my business has grown, money, started making money, more money than I ever had in my life. And so you have...
Bravo, by the way.
Thank you.
Praise God.
Yeah. That's a God thing for sure.
Yeah, testament to God.
But that being said, now, because I think when it's new to you and you have money, obviously you want things,
Sure.
And that's not necessarily the best thing to do. But not that I have brand new cars, all that, but I've bought a guitar, bought cameras, I bought things I wanted that I never could afford before. And then you realize after I get them, I play with them, and the newness wears off. It's just another thing that sits on the shelf that I got it. Who cares? No one cares, right? It's not fulfilling. Things are not fulfilling. I tell my daughter all the time, Scarlett, she's 10, and I want to give a little shout out to Scarlett. She just got AB on a roll, by the way, so I just want to give a little shout out. Hey, Scarlett, proud of you.
Congrats
for doing that. That's awesome. And there's, I think, some TikTok about it, so go check it out. So back to that, so I understand that whole what it's like, wanting things and getting all these things, and there's not fulfillment in it. Like, it's just, I got all these things, I got all the money on the planet, I got all the cars I could have. At some point, what else is there to buy? What else? There's nothing, because you're not fulfilled inside.
Spiritually, yeah.
So that's what we're here to try. Hopefully, bring some of that into the podcast, along with some music guests and business people. I got some friends. We got some good friends of ours, an attorney who want to talk about some Second Amendment stuff. So we've got some cool things lined up. We've already done some recording, by the way. We've already got 3 or 4 guests recorded that we'll be releasing, but we had to do this one first. So so that's kind of gives you all a little bit of insight of where we're going. And Kelly, you have anything you want to dive into a little bit while we're here? We got some time.
No, I'm just really looking forward to having some really honest dialogue with people that I think can help influence, but also can help bring healing to some circumstances with people. Because I think as a pastor, me becoming a pastor later on in life, I don't know necessarily I would have paid attention to some of these things. But I think as we've gotten older, as you and I have kind of lived our lives, have kind of dealt with some of the problems that we've dealt with within the church world, we now can bring a different type of experience that can lead people to restoration, to repentance, to healing, and to ultimately a much more further relationship with God.
I think since we're here and we're doing an introduction, let's just go back a little bit to our history. Who are we? Where the Nunns come from, right? So, because we've met a lot of people in our lifetime, and sometimes I walk into people and I'll, hey Johnny, how you doing? And I really don't remember them. I hate to say that, but I've met so many people. It's hard to remember everybody.
It is,
especially if you're in the music scene and you're traveling around and hitting city to city. And like I said, you got more experience than I doing that, but I've got enough of myself.
Sure.
We've done tours together, so just didn't, unfortunately. I took the family route. You took the professional music route. I did professional, but just not to the level you have. So you understand. But I think going back to a little bit of history. So we and Kelly were born in Kentucky. That's where we come from. And we lived in a small little town called Mount Washington outside of Louisville, Kentucky, up at baby till I was about 12, 13 years old. Well, actually, we were 16.
Yeah, you were 16. I was...
1990s when we actually moved to Florida.
I was 12 turning 13 when we moved here.
Teenagers, going into teenage years, and we all moved out of Kentucky. Moved to Florida.
Culture shock.
Yeah, that was.
We were living in a small town, man. You know,
we had 2 red lights in our town.
Yep.
We had
one McDonald's.
Actually, one McDonald's. It was Druthers back then.
We're back there. Yeah.
And then it turned into Dairy Queen, but it was a Druthers. There was a KFC. There was a Pizza Hut. That was like our.
There's a roller skating rink that everyone would go to on Friday night. It's like,
It was a small little town.
Very small
town living. We grew up kind of around the farm area. That's kind of where we come from, and a place called Greensboro, Kentucky. That's where my grandparents come from. And also as a kid, so we got introduced to music at a very young age. My grandpa was a professional musician, and we were on the road, it seemed like, every other weekend.
Dude, I remember as early as probably 4 or 5 laying down in Papa's green van, coming back from a weekend of playing concerts. Our parents were in a Southern gospel group, so they traveled every weekend. I mean, for the longest time, our grandfather was spending it's like anywhere from 50 to 51 weeks out of the year on the weekends. He would be going and playing with their band somewhere. I remember getting to sit down and talk with him about the adventure. Yeah, so we grew up in this era of music, and so we saw it, but I don't think it was until... I mean, at least for me, I was a teenager when I really started noticing like the allure of music. We played sports growing up, so there wasn't much of that.
I lived in my grandparents' house when I was younger because we were young, but there was always guitars, and man, my grandma played like 9 or 10 different instruments. I can't even remember how many he played, but it was quite a few.
Quite a bit.
So anyway, there was always guitars laying around, and so he always had a guitar in his room. Every Sunday morning he would get up if we were going to church. If he wasn't playing, he was always playing and that sort of thing. So I was always around music. I'd pick up the guitar. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was always tinging on it, going up down the fret. The things you do as a kid.
I want to play because it's it's an instrument.
We grew up around music, so from a very young age, it's part of our life, and we've never stopped. And so we've played all kinds of places. So music is who we are as a breed. But moved to Florida. We started church, and our lives here. I get married. You go on the road, and then our lives move on. So that's kind of where we come from. We're kind of just a bunch of country people, to be honest with you.
What was wild is when because this all started with me, you, and Al. I think I was 14.
Al's our other brother.
Yeah, Al's the middle between him and I. And I remember I had just started playing drums. I had this radical experience with God at 13 years old.
I remember.
Got prayed for, felt the Spirit come over my life, and this change that happened. And then, I just got up and started playing drums.
He literally went from wanting to play drums and couldn't to playing drums.
Yes. And so there's always been this connection for me with the drums, guitar, all that kind of stuff. And so I remember starting a group with our buddy Darren, played some shows, started doing that. And then you felt the call, hey, me and my family are going to go move away.
We did.
They ended up moving back to Kentucky. And so me and Al, we started diving into the local Christian scene and secular scene as well. We had connected with a church in basically a venue called the Refuge.
Yep.
And so this is where I was introduced
this
to.
This would be in the 90s, by the way.
Yeah. So here in St. Pete, there is a music revelation or music revolution that happened. So when this church started coming in doing these concerts, they got directly involved with the booking agents who were Tooth and Nail Records at this time was probably in its infant stages. Mm-hmm. They had just a few releases. Christian music was taking this shift from this contemporary CCM kind of like Petras of the world, Carmen of this world, which is like this pop culture thing. But that's not what me and guys like myself and my brothers, we were really...
Y'all went to the underground.
Yeah, we wanted some of the more heavier music, and this is where this started to becoming almost a pop culture phenomenon, because it went from no one could possibly ever sustain a full-time living doing this to, wow, we're actually sustaining a full-time living doing these things. Yes. And so me and Al spent 3 or 4 years of grinding away under the Christian underground. I mean, even secular underground. I remember we were playing with like POD. POD, you know, when they
Before
came
they
here.
really got big, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, their first East Coast tour, St.
right
Pete
here.
Vineyard was one of the first. The St. Pete Refuge was one of the first venues that they ever played on this coast. So seeing them kind of come up. I mean, I remember seeing Blink-182 playing with them before Travis was in the band. Like, you know, you saw all of these things kind of happen and take place. And I don't think we ever really realized what was actually happening. But as this continued to grow, go into the late 90s into the early 2000s, now you have Christian underground or faith-based music that not only is in the mainstream, now it's charting on major radio, charting on regular chart on the Billboard charts. So you have this explosion, and then add on like the Vans Warped Tour, who strategically planned just to go after the skateboard punk rock kids of America. And a lot of those kids were based in the faith world. Yeah. And Vans Warped Tour, from a genius idea, started looking at where these popular bands were going on. And a lot of them, for probably 4 or 5 years, you had some of the largest selling metal underground rock bands were all within the Christian scene. You know, bands like Switchfoot, when they first came out, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you started to see how this could actually transcend and go places that we had never dreamed of. And so we just started following these things, and then more and more and more, I leave to go to college, come back, and Under Oath was looking for a guitar player. And so I was like, well, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to try this audition, and it worked. Yeah. You know, so we start touring, and this is right when they had just started to the full-time touring. So, you know, it was real difficult. I blew out my knee, but I had made some really good contacts. So as soon as I started touring again and that healed up, I got another phone call from Further Seems Forever asking to be their touring guitar player. Started helping with that, and then still keeping my connections with that when Further ended, I got another phone call to help with Maylene. So, like, it was all a blessing, you know, and just, you know, I put myself in positions to where if somebody was needing another musician, at least I could throw my hat into the arena to allow things to be able to come forward.
And those bands led you or give you the ability, or what's the word? Whatever the word is, you went in these places where you got to go into the depth. We're seeing all these, playing a bunch of huge concerts, playing with big bands like Alice in Chains. All these things. So you got to that level.
Well, we were doing more secular shows than we were Christian. Yeah. Which is even more of a testament to this, is that we were able to go. People were. I mean, not to say there was without its damages or its risks, because there were many times people tried to jump us. People did jump us. I mean, you know, you add these elements into the touring world where it had primarily be dominated by secular bands and all that kind of stuff. There was no room for this.
This is a great example of what we're talking about. Like, when we bring in some musicians who've been down this road, they could talk about how their faith has been tested to the extreme when you're in these environments, specifically when you're running as a band and you're touring from city to city to city, especially when you're touring with non-Christian bands. Like, you don't know what's going to come up. You don't know, what's going to happen. People get offended. There's all kinds of crazy stories we can go into, down the road with that.
It's one of the actual ideas that we have is why, because there's a cause and an effect to this. The cause was, you started to see people really excited about faith, bringing that into music and to be able to transcend that to the world.
Right now again.
But what it also did was create an allure of, be a Christian band, you'll be popular. Yeah. And then you realize either their faith wasn't up for it.
It wasn't rooted in faith.
Or it wasn't rooted in faith. It was rooted in popularity. Yeah. So we saw that a lot.
There's a lot of bands that use that as a doorway to get into.
Yeah.
That happened quite often. So I hope that kind of gives you guys some basic information of where we're wanting to go with this. It's way more than that, but this has been an accident in the making for such a long time, and I'm happy to be here. You don't understand the struggles we went through.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Some of you might have seen, we did start another podcast called Think About It, which is still part of what I do, but I did that for more of my business, and that was the thinking of that kind of finally say, hey, we got to the point, let's now do the Nunn Better Podcast, and let's now dive into those subjects and topics that we've been talking about for such a long time, bring that into fruition, and here we are. We're doing our first episode. So kudos to you and me and Ricky Ricardo back there behind the scenes doing and giving us all the love that we get. So Kelly, you want
Tell us
to?
about some of the episodes that we've already recorded.
Yeah, we have. Well, we've had a few episodes already done. So I have one, and I forget Oscar's last name. Do you remember his last name? Oscar. I don't want to say it wrong. Anyway, Oscar was a homicide detective in D.C. for 10 years. Moved to the Special Forces for 10 years. Traveled the world doing all kinds of special ops things. So we had a whole gun Second Amendment recording that we've done already. That's going to be coming out. We have Taj from Bushido Karate that I've interviewed that's going to be releasing again. Kelly has a Pastor Tim Kelly who has a very unique story with what's happened to him in his life that I'm really actually looking forward to hearing that interview with him, with you. He's coming up and be doing that here pretty soon. Big one we're getting ready to go to do, guys, was Bradley, and we're going to be Bradley from Dropping Bombs podcast. We're going to be going out there in the end of April. We're going to be launching, going out there on his podcast, and I'm really excited about doing that because that's going to really help us get in front of some people to really launch this thing the way we really want to be launched. So tune into that's going to be coming out. He's actually going to be on our podcast too, so we'll be a couple podcasts coming with him. We have some cool things, other things lined up. Uncle, yeah, I'm Uncle. We just shot that last week with Uncle Harold. Harold Milby from the Christian Business Concepts podcast. Friday it's releasing.
No. Gabe.
Gabe, yes, Gabe Graham.
Anonymous Prime, baby.
Anonymous Prime, which we actually just got off doing a 27-year reunion tour with Anonymous Prime. So our friend Gabe Graham and Jason, they had a punk band back in the 90s, and so they asked Kelly and I if we could help them fulfill their dream of reuniting and go and do a little show, and we did that. So we just finished doing that with some punk rock stuff that was kind of fun on the East Coast. So Kelly, how was that experience? You learned to play drums for that kind of fast punk rock stuff? Not what
as
you
a drummer,
play.
yeah, I mean, like as a drummer, I'll say this, what gave me an advantage learning this stuff was actually playing in church world.
Yes.
Because like
Our church world.
Our old church world was like some of the 2/2 stuff, and if you know what that means, a time signature. So it's super so super fast kind of stuff. So actually, believe me, it was a challenge.
Yeah.
But it was a challenge that I welcomed because I knew it was going to make me better. And so like actually, by the time that I got to playing it, I was like, oh, I can actually do this.
I played punk rock band with him back in the 90s myself, back in the late 90s. But I didn't play his songs. And
sure.
Learning all those guitar parts, you played them. So it was definitely challenging. I won't say it was challenging.
Well, the challenging for me was learning someone else's parts.
Yeah, it was. And some of the recordings weren't real good. Like the
sure.
Going on, so I was trying to figure that part out. So, but we got through it. Like the show went amazing. We played it pretty well. I feel pretty confident what we did was great.
I felt great with it.
Probably gonna be doing a show in St. Pete again with them, from my understanding. So we'll be looking for that. Anonymous Prime. We'll be announcing when that's gonna happen. I imagine it happen in the next couple months probably. But they're wanting to do another show here in St. Pete. So look forward for that. Other than that, I can't think. Well, I do want to give a shout out to our church, St. Pete Vineyard. We actually just did a work day. We just got back from working over the church all day today and doing some landscaping and working inside the church and cleaning up. So spring cleaning, getting ready for Easter. So with that being said, we're a little on the dirty side actually here.
If you don't have a home church, please come and check us out. St. Pete Vineyard, 5000 10th Street North, St. Petersburg, Florida.
And that's also part of a little bit what we're talking about now. That Kelly's a pastor. Now we can navigate and talk to people about our faith. But also we understand we can, with his perspective, someone who's a business perspective, kind of collaborate all those together, and now we can go talk to people, have some interesting conversations, and see where this thing goes. So I'm happy to see where it goes, man.
Amen. Yeah.
Brother, it's going to be fun. Tune back in. Nunn Better Podcast, coming at you live.
See you soon, guys.
Well, go to our website, nunnbetterpodcast.com. We'll be on Spotify, Apple iTunes, YouTube, all the major social media platforms. We'll be out on all those. So be looking for us. We'll have some new episodes, some clips. Don't be looking for Fozzie. You love Fozzie, so get him on there and watch Fozzie do some fun stuff he's doing. So we're looking forward to this. It's gonna be fun. So
Until next time.
Until next time. See ya.
See you guys.
If you think you got an interesting story and you want to be on our podcast, go to info@nunnbetterpodcast.com and drop us a line. If your home is going to flood, here are some most common places: your toilet, washing machine, your dishwasher, your ice maker lines. That's why homeowners are installing the Water Block. It's a 100% mechanical overflow safety device. No power, no batteries. It gets installed between the fixture or the appliance and the water supply line. You can set your water flow from 1.3 to 13 gallons. And if the water goes past its preset limit, boom, the water block shuts off, preventing the flood and damaging your property. So protect your floors, protect your house, and for God's sake, protect your wallet. Go to imstiner.com and protect yourself with the water plan.